You're watching BCTV. We're all about Brantford. You're watching BCTV, Brantford Government Television, a service of Brantford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Brantford.
We will call this meeting of the Brantford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It is Thursday, October 17th, 2024. I have 7:03 p.m. We'll start by introducing members of the commission and staff. Commission member Joe Chadwick, are you here?
Joe Chadwick is present.
Thank you, Joe. I understand Fred will be coming later, so he's not here yet. That's Fred Russo. Marcy Pelusi. Marcy, are you here?
Marcy's here.
Thank you, Marcy. Joe Vayuso. Joe, are you here?
Joe Vayuso's here.
Thank you, Joe. And Sharon Hutner. Sharon, are you here?
She told us she would not be attending tonight, could not attend.
Okay, so no Sharon. Okay. And our staff this evening is our town planner, Harry Smith. Harry, you're here?
I am here.
Our assistant planner, Evan Brining. Evan, you're here?
Here.
And our clerk recording secretary lurking in the background is Michelle Martin. I am Chuck Anders, chair. And I'll start by asking if I know Fred isn't here, but I don't know if Harry or someone who can read the notice of public hearing.
Yeah, I can do it.
Thanks.
Legal notice, Town of Brantford. The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Brantford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of public hearings to be held on Thursday, October 17th, 2024 at 7 p.m. by remote technology to consider the applications listed below. Information regarding how to participate in the public hearings will be provided in the Commission's meeting agenda that will be posted on the town's website at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Public hearing number 1, application 24-8.8, special exception for a two-family residence located at 9 East Main Street. Sonia Shannon, applicant and owner. Item number 2, application 24-9.5, special exception for a restaurant, fast food without a drive-through window, to be located at 5 East Industrial Road, A&R LLC, care of Amin Ula, applicant, Fusco Brantford Industrial, care of Louis R. Pepe, owner. Number 3, application 24-9.4, special exception for an auto body repair, located at 13 and 23 North Main Street, North Brantford Road, LLC, and 23 North Main Street, LLC, care of Dan Iamuno, applicant and owner. Number 4, application 24-9.6, special exception for grading under section 6.8, located at 9 High Plains Road, Darren Capabianco, applicant and owner. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. Copies are on file in the Planning and Zoning Commission's office at the Planning and Zoning Department, 1019 Main Street, Brantford, Connecticut, 06405. Written communications may be sent to the above address or to Planning and Zoning at brantford-ct.gov. Brantford Planning and Zoning Commission, C. Andres, chairperson.
Chuck Anders, chair. Thank you, Harry. We'll follow our normal format for public hearings, which is the applicant goes first, makes his presentation, including any comments from consultants. After that, we turn it over to the commission and staff. Typically hear a staff report summary from staff, questions, comments from commissions. At that point, we open up to the public. We ask that you state your name and address for the public, make your comments, and after the public portion is done, we allow the applicant to respond to any public comments. We may or may not complete the public hearing, depending on how it goes. And with that, I'm going to ask Evan to explain how people can participate in the public hearing.
Sure. If your computer has a microphone and you would like to participate, down at the bottom of your screen, there's a raise hand button. You can also type your comments into the chat feature. And if you're dialing in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And we ask that everyone please state their name at the beginning of their comment or question.
Chuck Anders, chair. Thank you, Evan. We have a number of public hearings on the agenda. We're going to follow our normal agenda, but We also have on our agenda an 824 referral regarding Main Street, the Town Green reconstruction rehabilitation that I understand that our town engineer, Mr. Heffley, has requested that if we could possibly push that up. So is that okay with everyone that we go ahead with the 824 referral first? Adjust the agenda to that respect. Joe Chadwick, is that okay with you?
Absolutely fine with me.
Okay. Marcy, that okay with you?
It's okay with me.
Okay. Joe Vayuso?
Yeah, no problem. It's okay.
Okay. And also I'm fine with that. Mr. Heffley, you want to explain what this is?
Sure, and appreciate your time and kind of bump me to the top here. So I'll keep it brief so you guys get on with the rest of your normally long meetings. So we do have, as most of you are aware, Main Street reconstruction project we've been designing for quite some time. While it doesn't quite fit into an 824 because we don't have any substantial changes to the roadway, it is obviously a substantial improvement. So we did want to bring that to the P&Z's attention under an 824. And we'll also have the town green improvements that we're proposing as well. Start off with the Main Street. There's a lot of longtime residents on this commission. That was back around 1990 is when the town revitalization project first occurred. So it's been quite a long time. You guys have all walked it. It's pretty tired. The brick sidewalks are very uneven. There's ADA issues, there's lighting issues, signalization issues. So what we started as just a straight road reconstruction project and addressing some ADA issues, we later found out that through this, it's the Local Transportation Capital Improvement Plan, LOTCIP. It's a grant through the DOT that pays 100% of construction costs for projects. We found out that the full streetscape would be eligible for this funding. So we definitely want to take advantage of that. Said it multiple times. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. If we're going to do it, let's address whatever we can. So with that, we kind of shifted to, let's remove all the brick, replace all the brick. We're going to now reset curbing. We're going to add some new amenities to the sidewalk areas. New street furniture, seating areas, the trees that have been kind of randomly taken out here and there, the old Bradford pears. We're going to replace all the plantings except for, the area where the cherry trees are, where the town green is. We understand that's quite a show in the spring, so we're going to leave that alone. But mostly safety upgrades, alignment upgrades. We had a lot of public input. We did put this out. Had an event on the green and had a survey out there, and overwhelmingly, speeds were an issue. So safe crossings, things like that. So we did take all that in consideration and design as much as we could. We still need to meet certain standards. So with that, I don't know if I'm able to share my screen. We'll try. Good. Just kind of run you through pretty quickly, unless there's other questions that you have specifically to the plans. But you can see the limits are about Laurel Street, but Blackstone Library is here. The police station is down Laurel Street. So that's where our improvements start. This is DOT Route 146 that comes down to South Main. So not a lot of substantial changes on the limits of where the brick or concrete that in this particular area that we'll be replacing. We will see that we are shifting some of the curb lines down, like in this area. The existing curb is here. You'll see that kind of throughout the project where we're creating kind of those neck downs to try to slow traffic. We are incorporating really formal crossings at a lot of these places where there aren't. I'll try to slowly move through this, but quickly you'll see there's a little bit of changes along the curb lines. But again, the limits of where the brick currently is will remain. We are adding, again, I mentioned the ADA accessibility standards. So we're adding, this is a flush condition here. So now we'll be with the current ADA standards throughout the state. That's a big goal of ours. Well, really a requirement of ours to this project, but we'll kind of continue down. You'll notice that we are reconstructing this intersection at Town Hall Drive. Right now, this is about a 70-foot crossing, and we see it all the time. women with strollers or men with their strollers walking across that 70-foot, looking over their shoulder every way they can because you've got traffic coming all over the place. So we are reconstructing this with pedestrian island, kind of shorten up those crossings here. Long term, Town Hall Drive is slated to be reversed. So you'll enter off of Mono Street and come through Town Hall Drive and come out. This is going to avoid a lot of conflicts that we see here, as well as I'm sure everyone's left Town Hall Drive. Looking to the left, you can barely see cars coming. We've got a little mirror that's up on a power pole if you didn't notice. Try to see anyone that's coming, and especially around festival time, it's a really dangerous situation. So that should make that entrance a little more safer on that side as opposed to exiting. Again, just making some improvements here to the brick. The brick will be clay brick. It will not be concrete pavers. We've seen those pavers really deteriorate pretty quickly, especially with the amount of kind of salting that we have to do in the center of town, keep people safe in the winter. So those will be all clay brick. We are extending out to the circle here around the Memorial Garden. And again, I mentioned this is a Main Street reconstruction, so we can only go so far with the money from DOT under that grant program. So as much as we'd like to continue down Mono East or down these side streets, we really have to stick to Main Street. It's a requirement of that grant. We continue down. There's some grading that will be changing over here. We need to make all these buildings ADA compliant. Coming down this hill is pretty steep, but we're trying to make it work as best we can. And the other limit of construction really is down here by the old Odalise restaurant past Chestnut, with plans to hopefully get the same type of funding for, where we end here all the way to Route 1 to a mill and pave and kind of finish off the whole section of Main Street from a DOT roadway to a DOT roadway. So we do have some additional, let's see if I can minimize that. Some additional details to show you. We are trying to get street furniture included under this grant program. So that includes some benches, some bike racks in areas, new garbage cans. These details give you a little idea of where we're trying to create some amenity zones, so to speak. We are trying to get some rain gardens as part of this project, which we'll kind of show you in a second here. These are just some of the design elements that may be of interest. This is kind of one of the main rain gardens that we will be creating down. This is down by Ivy Street. You'll notice what looks like railroad tracks, and it's kind of a throwback to the trolley tracks that are currently still underneath Main Street. So we're hoping to salvage some of those rails and use maybe some old salvaged granite curbing from this job and create that kind of, throwback to the heyday of Brantford's Main Street, while also letting some of the street runoff be treated within a rain garden type of treatment there. So, and before I get into that, if any of the commission members have any questions on what I've gone over so far.
Thank you, Mr. Heffley. Any questions, comments from commission members on what's been said up to now?
I have just one observation, and it's kind of a multi-part observation. And I think this is all great, and I understand the concept of brick is, the sort of go-to for pedestrian scale, human scale kind of stuff. But brick is also kind of a modular thing, and it works great on cities that have sidewalks laid out like graph paper, like Manhattan or Philadelphia. As I walk through town, I see the brick being tortured into trying to conform to curves rather, and you always get these sort of ridiculous little slivers. So I was happy to see some herringbone pattern in here because that's a little more forgiving of that. I got a tiny bit itchy when you said it's going to be a clay brick, because even SW brick, which is what you would use as a paver, still has a hard burned exterior and a soft interior. So when you have these little slivers packed in there, you're going to have a slightly higher propensity for degradation with the salt that you're trying to avoid with the concrete brick. That being said, I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just saying when the detailing for this starts to develop and gets a little further into it, it would be helpful, I guess, if they had sort of a system where the module can be adapted to the curbs without getting a lot of those ridiculous little sliver cuts. They're dangerous for the guy who's making the cut. They're kind of a waste of material. They're unpleasant. They're weird. They just don't fit with the concept of brick. But other than that, that is my only cautionary note on this. I think you guys are doing a great job on the concept for pedestrian. From a planning level, I think this is great.
All right, no, appreciate that, Joe. Yeah, and it's the herringbone was definitely the preferred option given again all the curves and everything like that. We've seen even around town where we've had some issues getting that other patterns to work. So that basket weave is all over town. So yeah, it's something we'll definitely talk to the designers about. I wanted to go concrete with some accents, but so it's much cheaper and easier to work with. But the overwhelming public input was for let's keep everything the same. So we went back to the brick.
Thank you, Joe and John. Are there other questions, comments on what we've heard so far from any commission members? Marcy.
Hi, sorry, I got the dogs excited. I was just curious what discussions might have transpired about doing speed humps. I've noticed that you've relied on the chicanes as the primary way to still have parallel parking and slow traffic down in the intersections and so forth. I just was curious if you had done anything with speed humps. And then my other question is, I love the idea of a rain garden, but without a really good maintenance plan, that can become quite unkempt at certain times of the year. So I'm curious if we've got our arms around what that's going to take from our public works to really maintain that, to keep it beautiful as well as functional, because obviously the function is a great idea. But those are really my two comments, and everything else looks fabulous.
Yeah, as to your second point, yeah, that is something that's going to be considered by the town. There's money set aside for the center maintenance. So whether that's, and right now I believe we do hire that out, the maintenance of those landscape beds. So that would be something that they'd have to pay a little bit more closer attention to, especially in those first couple of years, as again, salt water is getting in there and things are trying to really develop. But your second question, that again, we did hear a lot about speed humps and traffic calming. The speed humps we wanted to avoid based on the fact that we do have emergency vehicles that need to get through this area pretty quickly, and there's a lot of truck deliveries too. So between slowing down the emergency vehicles and then with the semi-truck deliveries, they get very noisy, and you have school buses coming through too. But we wanted to avoid that and really try to just skinny things down as far as traffic calming, and then make sure we have proper signage everywhere. Because right now there's really a lack of signage through this area. That's all going to be upgraded as we're required to through DOT as well. But we want to make sure that people are visible, right? And when you get these bump outs and you make shorter crossings, people become more visible as they're waiting on the curb. So I think between that, and then we'll have to try to get enforcement kind of stepped up throughout town. Hopefully we can kind of get back to that kind of attitude, because I think that's you get them in the wallet, and I think that's when people really learn to change their behaviors. So appreciate the comments.
Yeah, any other comments, questions from commission members before we move on? Or
Just one more.
Marcy.
I thought I saw to detail some seawalls. Are you proposing seawalls in any particular locations?
Yes, I'll apologize. I don't know exactly where we're putting them, but there would be some granite block seat walls, primarily around the landscaped areas, so that people will have a kind of less of a bench and kind of more of a showy place to sit, right? we're really trying to, once we got outside of just the plain old roadway reconstruction, that's when we brought on the landscape architects, and they really got to let loose and come up with some nice ideas for the summer. So
Yeah, I'm glad to see that you're using the Stony Creek, which is, so indicative of our town for the blocks.
Any other comments from anyone? Mr. Heffley, you have additional items you want to review with us?
yes, so let me get rid of this drop down that's coming up. Let's do it. So as part of this 824, oh, come on. We are trying to get, we're asking for concurrence from the Planning and Zoning Commission on our erosion sediment control plan. I know it's not exactly within the purview since, this is a right of way. But we do have, and being that it's a sidewalk project and mostly everything is, I should say it's the road too, but everything is within a cut, right? So we don't have slopes down except for really on this western side of the project, but we will have some silt fencing on the hillsides. There'll be inlet protection. It's a pretty simple erosion control plan on this. I reviewed it. I've asked, just to get another set of eyes on it, I've asked the inland wetlands agent to review this as well. She had very minimal comments, and my only comments were to kind of protect some of these downhill inlets. Because we know there will be some tracking on some of these side streets, so we do want to protect the inlets down the hill a little bit. Again, it's not really a formal review, but hopefully you guys have had a chance to look at it and would agree that it really meets the intent of what your regulations are as far as sediment erosion control go.
Chair Candace, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Heffley.
I have one more question.
Comments? Sure, Marcy.
Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned that they were going to be rerouting. It's Marcy again. Reversing the flow around Town Center Drive.
Mm-hmm.
And I know at one point there was some discussion of doing more of a roundabout, I think towards the library and Eads and Laurel Street. What happened with that discussion about the roundabout? And has there been any conversation about aligning Eads and Laurel Street and, and other traffic moves along those, those guidelines? And were they just not within the scope of this project, or were abandoned for some reason?
So the roundabout was actually going to be funded through this same grant program. And when we started looking at it, I wasn't around for that initial or the final design of the roundabout. When we came in and we started looking at it and having discussions about that roundabout, we realized that DOT had a lot to say and a lot of role. They took a very large role in the design of that, since it did start to include Route 146 in that roundabout. So instead of being just a regular roundabout, that thing stretched out forever, and included a lot of improvements on State Highway. And when we looked at the intent of this program was for local infrastructure, right? So it's to help out the towns and our council of governments to be able to make these capital improvements that we normally wouldn't have the funding for. And so we kind of shifted from that roundabout idea to Main Street itself. We said that this is a much better use of the money. It's going 100% towards local improvements, not state infrastructure. We have much more control over the design and the design elements of the project. And so that's kind of where we made the shift. That was back around like 2019, 2020. We really took a hard look at that project and said, this is more of a state problem and a state project, even though it does affect, obviously the residents and visitors of town and some of the town infrastructure is more, it just became more of a state roundabout.
Thank you, Mr. Heffley. Any other questions, comments from anyone? Any commissioner, staff, members or staff? Do you have anything else, Mr. Heffley, or is that it?
Yeah, just one more thing, and then again, I'm sorry I'm taking up a lot of your time, but the town green came about. We ended up applying for a small town economic assistance grant, a steep grant for the green. That's a $500,000 grant that we obtained for improvements. Again, not changing a lot to the green. We understand it's a very historic green. We did consult with, the Green Committee and the Forest Commission on what we wanted to do here. And they were in agreement. The major change to it, I already mentioned changing the direction of Town Hall Drive, is that we're going to be adding a sidewalk along the frontage of this diagonal parking, which anyone who's ever parked there knows cars just pull off the edge of the roadway. People cross Town Hall Drive to get to the sidewalk on the north, or walk behind parked cars, which is not safe for people backing up and pedestrians, obviously. So we're gonna realign some of the sidewalks to the steps. This is the phase 1 drawing, so it doesn't show everything, but we're essentially keeping mostly everything the same, taking away a little bit on the south side to add a sidewalk. On the second phase, and these are more preliminary plans, but we do anticipate replacing the walk across the green. Hopefully we have enough money to add and replace sidewalk along the north side of Town Hall Drive. And this is where you're going to see the raised crosswalk. This is also another place where we see cars flying. I don't know why they cut through on Town Hall Drive. I don't think they're saving any time, but people do. And so we do want to slow them down, and being it's not a primary emergency route, we feel comfortable putting a raised crosswalk in there. So the green will be regraded and hydroseeded. We'll get rid of the ponding that happens along the walkway at heavy rains and icing. And again, if we have enough money, we do want to add some more like bollard style lighting across the green and perhaps along the north side, just to light, give a sense of safety and some safe lighting so you can see where you're walking at night across the green. So with that, that's the end of what I have for you guys. So any questions you have on any of that? I understand it was a lot, so I appreciate your time on that.
So the change in directions that you mentioned initially and referred to again, that's not part of this. That would be a later phase that you would presumably come before us with, or what?
So the initial plan for Main Street, and again, we need to kind of work on how we're going to get these two projects. There's two separate funding sources, two projects, so likely two contractors, right? We expect Main Street to start up and do the majority of their work before we start trying to interconnect things with Town Hall Drive and the center of the green. So this phase will likely happen first, where we get the pedestrian island in, and we'll still be able to maintain a temporary flow through Town Hall Drive the way it is. And then as part of the Main Street project, once we have enough of the Town Hall Drive project, once we have enough in the Main Street project to tie into, then we'll likely make that switch on Town Hall Drive as part of the green project. So it's kind of tricky. We're dancing around with, again, two different funding sources and likely two different contractors. But we do expect that the intersection here will be under construction or completed by the time we do Town Hall Drive and make that change. So it's going to be a lot of confusion during the Main Street project. We understand that. There's going to be a lot of detouring. There's, some closures of lanes and things like that. So we don't want to introduce everything at once and nobody knows how to get to Town Hall Drive, or they're coming in the wrong way when we've already switched it. So I think switching the direction will be kind of one of those last steps that we make towards the end of both these projects.
Right. I would think that's a fairly major change, and you would want to make sure that people know about it and hear any comments. You'd have to obviously change the parking layout as well. And I assume looks like you haven't done that yet. So I was just wondering if that would be, if you'd come back, for that, or is this approval include that?
And hopefully this would include that. I mean, we do have the striping is not changed on this plan, but we do have the curb lines changed. But the striping would basically just flip all the diagonal parking, and that's what you would get with what would be final. So Town Hall Drive would be repaved and then restriped to accommodate the flow from Montouise out to Town Hall, or out to Main Street.
What, was there much public comment about the change in directions?
No, actually, I mean, even the commissions that we did go to, the boards and commissions were in favor of it. I think everyone understands how Town Hall Drive works and how it can be sketchy a lot of the times. So I think it was a welcome change.
John, are you going to have approximately the same number of parking spaces? Have you even really gone to that level yet of analysis?
I'm not sure if we've designed and counted those parking spaces. Main Street will be losing some spaces. I can tell you that because we do have right now parking where there shouldn't be parking based on current standards. So we do need to remove some parking. And then on Town Hall Drive, I believe because of the switch, we may be losing those 2 spaces there and not be able to make them up. But the rest of this striping is compliant as is. So
Okay.
with the flip, again, I think we're just losing the two spaces there.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments from anyone?
Just one more for Town Hall Drive. Obviously you haven't developed it with the streetscape work, you're just working on the engineering, but are you planning to bring in the same level of streetscape on Main Street as you would for Town Hall? And it seems like there's some opportunity to do some alignment issues, that, I don't know if they've been fully vetted out. It looks like you're just trying to switch the parking and keep the same flow, but the curve where the crosswalk is just seems kind of lunky, for lack of a better word. So, it just seems like if you're going to really change a direction, you can really make it more fluid and put some thought there. And maybe it's just because you're a little bit in concept at this point, but
Yeah, it is a little funky, and you can see the darker line here is where our proposed curb line would be. So we're going to straighten some things out on this side. Due to utilities and things like that, we can't, and our restrictions on the south side, we can't really push things out to kind of straighten that out as much as we like to. But it will get a little bit more uniform. And I mean, this is so wide right here, that'll be narrowed up to an appropriate width. And this is too narrow here, so this actually gets widened a little bit to allow for properly striped areas. And then as far as the streetscapes go, we hope to be able to bring the brick on the north side and across the green. On the south side, we would keep the concrete consistent as a smoother surface for ADA along the south side. So we're trying to work with everybody because we do have the churches to deal with, and the Green Committee we have to deal with, and the Forest Commission, and we're trying to get the town center, trying to get all the stakeholders on board, and while not taking away from anybody, it's kind of one of those situations that we're dealing with.
so is all the electrical underground at this point, or are there existing lighting fixtures happening along that north edge of the Town Center Drive?
Everything's
And are all
underground.
the light fixtures on the Main Street, for that matter, are they being replaced as well, or are they just worked with the same light fixtures?
Yeah, so all the electric's underground until you get to the limits of the Main Street project. The wiring will all be replaced. The light fixtures are all going to be rehabilitated. So those are all cast iron light poles. Every single one of them is cast iron. We want to keep them. It's extremely expensive to replace them. So you'd likely be going with aluminum, and we'd rather keep the cast iron there. So those will be, they're slated to be sanded and painted, and then an LED retrofit for all the lighting there. So same color scheme and everything. That said that overwhelmingly everyone said keep everything the same. So we know that change is difficult. So
I understand completely.
And John, the rationale for changing the direction, is it because there's a safety issue sort of at the entrance? What's the main reason for that?
So yeah, we've got twofold. Is I mentioned that anyone who's pulled out on the Monowese on this side currently, the sight lines here are terrible. The sight lines looking to the right are terrible. And again, I don't know if anyone's noticed, but on the power pole across from Town Hall Drive, there is a mirror there. to try to see what's going on the left. Now, when you've got the festival, semi trucks are parked here, tents are set up here. It's very difficult. Sight lines come through here, as well as we do see cut throughs from Main Street, I guess, trying to avoid the right turn at the light at Monowese to turn right on Monowese. So by reversing this, there's not really much of a reason to cut through, especially with a raised crosswalk. And then once we get to the intersection, we can't really install this permanently and keep this flow without changing a lot of what's going on with Tainter and Blackstone. We can't reverse Tainter. That's, the school buses pull up from behind the church at daycare. And Blackstone wouldn't make sense to reverse, and just this intersection to get it to work, it really works really well with reversing it on the Monowee side because you have that safety issue. But the flow here would work really well where you have, there will be a stop for Town Hall Drive, and you have a stop on Tainter. So this is a kind of a natural flow, everyone coming to the right, and then coming from the left, you're just going down Blackstone. That's the only movement that you'd have. So, and this is integral to the project that we really wanted to shorten up this crosswalk. It is extremely wide and dangerous. We see people making U-turns trying to, grab a parking spot. Sight lines aren't that great there either. So, and people coming down Tainter, with conflicts of people turning onto Blackstone and they're trying to turn out right. So, it all kind of made sense once we started to consider reversing Town Hall Drive.
I do think there's opportunity for some better design elements in front of the town hall to feature more of a plaza pedestrian link on the opposite side of town hall as a bridge or an entranceway to the green. And, I get that the engineers are engineering it, but I mean, I would really love to see some landscape architecture in that as an idea developed. Because I think it's, the town hall that's the focal point and we're not highlighting it nearly enough from a landscape perspective. I mean, I do agree with all of the traffic moves you're making and, the brickwork and all that work on the downtown is fabulous. And I think it's falling a little flat in front of the town hall. Like we've put a lot of time into the stairs and that side, the right, the main side is fine. But once you cross the street, there's no transition to the green or the way the green interfaces with the town hall. I think it just hasn't been thought out enough from a design perspective. And I think when they added the direct walkway, that was a great improvement, but I think we could go further with it if we can take a more forward-thinking approach to how the town's evolving and not get so perhaps stuck in the fact that it's the traditional town green and there were never curbs on the green or whatever it is that the more historical viewpoint is kind of holding back with. I just think that that's an important place that we should invest for the town hall. The church just did it, at the other end, they did a really nice entrance with their, a few years back with their handicap access and the planting. And right now the town hall has a more monolithic stepped entry, which is lovely, but it hasn't integrated any of the landscape or across into the green. And I think that could be bridged a little bit more, but hopefully you can look at that. That's all I'm saying. So.
Yeah, I mean, that can be a future phase where we bring on a per diem landscape architect and see if we can get something going.
Anything else, Mr. Hefferly?
That's all I have for you tonight. Yep.
Okay. So I think that you're looking for, I assume, a positive 824 referral with respect to this proposal. And again, there are three components: the improvements to Main Street itself, the erosion control, and then the areas along the green with the sidewalks, the change in the directions, and the other improvements that you mentioned. So does anyone have any comments? And if not, does someone want to make a motion that we provide a positive 824 referral with respect to this town project?
Chadwick makes that motion.
Motion by Joe Chadwick. Is there a second?
Marshfield seconded.
Second by Marcy. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Marcy,
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Vayuso,
Joe Vayuso in favor.
and Fred, I see you've joined us. I don't know if you heard the discussion. You did. Okay. Are you in favor? You're muted right now, I think. Okay.
I'm unmuted now. Yeah, I'm in favor.
Okay, great. And then chair is also in favor. Okay, thank you, Mr. Hefferly.
Thank you, everyone.
With that, then we'll move on to our public hearings on our agenda. I'll start with just go through the items. Item number one is on the agenda is Premier 200 North Main Street LLC. This is 206 North Main Street, and that's the one it's opened the public hearing in our last meeting, and I believe we continued it to our November 7th meeting. So that we're not moving forward with that one today, because that one was continued actually to our November 7th meeting. Again, that's a special exception for the automobile service facility. So for that one, we don't, it's on our agenda, but we don't have to do anything on that one. Is that correct, Harry?
Harry Smith, Town Planner, that is correct, yes.
Okay. Then items number 2 and 3 are Faulkner Island Development LLC. That's 1201 West Main Street, special exception coastal site plan, motor vehicle services. Anthony LaSala, trustee owner, and then also the special exception for grading. This is one that we had a number of public hearings on, and we had the peer review on the traffic issue, and I think additional time was needed. So my understanding is that the application has been withdrawn and it's going to be resubmitted, and that allows more time for reviews. Did I have that right? Correct, Harry?
Harry Smith, Town Planner again. Yes, essentially, it's already been resubmitted, so we've re-advertised it to November 7th meeting. And the reason was, as you mentioned, the applicant was running out of the statutorily allowed time frame for public hearings. So rather than wait till that ticked out, reapply, and then have a gap, they did it early enough so they could basically pick it up in the next meeting and keep going.
Okay. Thank you, Harry. So if you're here on that one, that's tune into our next meeting. That brings us into item number 4 and 5, which is A&R LLC, care of Amon Eula applicant, Fusco Branford Industrial, care of Louis Pepe owner, 5 East Industrial Road, special exception for gasoline filling station and retail store, and also a special exception restaurant, fast food without a drive-through window. And are we ready to proceed with that one? Is the applicant here on that?
Yeah. Yes. I think we're ready to proceed. I have my team here as well. Good evening. I'm Sarah Sharp. I'm a land use attorney with an address at 135 Broad Street in Millfield. I'm here on behalf of the applicant A&R LLC regarding the property at 5 East Industrial Road. This is the property directly adjacent to exit 56 southbound off-ramp. And as you mentioned, we're seeking a special exception for a gas station, fast food without a drive-through. Those are both special exception uses in the zone, I-2 zone. And on May 21st, 2024, earlier this year, we received a variance to allow a convenience store in excess of 3,000 square feet in the zone to accommodate the larger footprint of our convenience store, fast food, combined building here. This is an unusually shaped parcel. It was created by a DOT taking to relocate the adjacent exit. It's a sort of remnant lot that's been vacant for a number of years, I think for a lot of obvious reasons. And what we discussed with the ZBA, and I think is very much true, that this is kind of one of the only appropriate uses for the site. We have, it's on a dead end street. There's no pass by traffic other than I-95. It's a very unusual shape, and there's an overhead electrical easement that even further limits the developable area of the site. So I think we have a good plan here that I will have our engineer walk us through, but I did want to note we received a favorable staff report from Evan, confirming that the application does meet all applicable bulk standards and the special permit criteria. We received some minor comments from the town engineer yesterday and submitted additional information to respond to those comments this morning. And as of this afternoon, Mr. Hefferly has confirmed that all comments have been addressed. I wanted to note that as raised in Evan's memo, we are requesting a driveway width in excess of the default maximum design standards. Your regulations do allow for a greater width, for the commission to allow a greater width by recommendation from the town engineer. The town engineer's comments asked for more justification for why we were requesting that additional width, and I'll let our civil engineer go into it, but essentially we needed it for the truck movements, and Mr. Hefferly did confirm that we had satisfied his comments. And with that, we have Gareth Wilson here, our civil engineer with Bowler, and we have Mike Dion here to talk about traffic. So I'll turn it over to Gareth now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Gareth Wilson with BL Companies, 100 Constitution Plaza, Hartford. I just share my screen here. Hopefully you can see my screen, an aerial of the surrounding area. The site located here of the I-95 off-ramp. As you can see, all the local businesses there, existing gas station, Stop and Shop, CT Shellfish, Freightliner next door. We are in the, it's loading, IG2 zone, industrial use. As you can see, we're fully within that and in with similar businesses. I jump to the landscaping plan first. So this is a very odd shaped parcel, as Sarah just mentioned. I-95 is up here in the bottom of the page, and with the off-ramp wrapping round to East Industrial Road, which crosses our frontage. We also have a DOT non-access line, which basically starts from the bottom corner all along the ramp, which is there for obvious reasons, and then along East Industrial Road to this point here where my hand is, hence why our entrance is in the top right-hand corner. As you can see, we've got a mix of pumps, both front and rear. Front for smaller standard traffic, cars, small trucks, and then larger vehicles, mainly contractors with trailers or small equipment at the rear for separation. The C-store in the middle here, 5,010 square feet, underground storage tanks to the left, and then various underground surface water detention basins, one in the front, one in the drive aisle, and 2 open basins at the rear. Again, we've got the trash enclosures at the rear and the loading zone too. As you can see from this plan, the client has asked for a lot more landscaping than what would be typically found in a gas station here. Hopefully this plan does justice to the amount of planting that he wishes to proceed with. I'm going to just jump to the next page. That's the existing site as is. It's been empty, I believe, since the DOT installed the on-off ramp. Given that the unique shape, the red line denotes the access, the DOT access limits, only open up the front. Jump across to our site plan, we can show you a bit more detail. So we have the 12 park pump bays at the front consisting of 8 pumps with drive aisles in between for easy maneuver, 7 pumps along the frontage, 13 along the store. Along the top here, we have 4 EV chargers plus the air and vacuums at the front. And then towards the rear, another larger, more for larger diesel vehicles situated there. We have access from both the rear and the front to the C-store. And if I just forward on, One request from the town engineer was just to show why we needed such a large drive aisle curb cut. So the largest truck here shown is WB67. It's slightly larger than the gas tanker that will come in to refuel the station. But as you can see, coming into the site, it has to make a 180 turn, which means quite a wide swing, therefore the wider entrance. But as you can see, he can come in, round, load up the fuel tanks, and exit around the rear. And that's the plan for any larger trucks, although this really isn't the clientele that we envisage, but sort of small to medium-sized vehicles using this gas station. Then come to the grading and drainage plan. We've raised the site slightly, mainly because through our geotechnical investigations, we came across rock around 4 feet beneath existing surface. Therefore, to fit the drainage systems in and actually create some depth, so they're not exceptionally shallow, we had to raise the site slightly, and we do have a retaining wall along the left-hand side here. 2 underground detention systems in the front and 2 at the rear, open at the rear. Utilities all come in through the single curb cut because of the DOT non-access line, but all services come in there: water, gas, electric, and sewers go out there as well. Our sediment erosion control have the erosion control matting all around where we're regrading, which is basically around almost the entire perimeter. We have our vehicle tracking as we come in, washout pits, and then the temporary material storage shown there too. If I just go to the architecture, so this is the concept floor plan. We got the front entrance here facing the main pumps, and then the rear entrance to the public for the 2 pumps at the rear as well. Over to the right hand side, we have all the convenience store, counter, their office, bathrooms, electric support room and office, coolers along the rear, public restrooms, and then the fast food without drive-through. We've got 560 square feet for dining area there, and some counter, kitchen, coolers, storage, and office. To give you an idea of what we're looking to actually build, it's a fairly modern looking building, nice mix of materials, a lot of difference in height, elevation materials. We got stone veneer, metal siding, paneling as well. It's the front, and then the rear, we got the same facade as well. So this will be visible from I-95. So it's it wants to look pretty as well. Sorry, I thought it was a question. If there are any questions, please feel free to interrupt. Just jump back to a lighting plan. Again, we've been discussing with the town staff as well, and I believe we've satisfied all the criteria for lighting. We have canopy lightings, we have pole mounted throughout the site, and then wall lightings as well on the building. And finally, again, back to the landscaping, with several trees remaining along the front. New maples been planted, oaks as well. Lots of shrub along the edges of any of the gas pumps right behind them, and completely surrounding the building, all along the retaining wall here, and in the trash enclosure as well. So quite substantial amount of planting on this site as well. If anyone doesn't have any questions on that in the moment, I'm going to pass to my colleague Mike Dion to walk you through the traffic.
Thanks, Gareth. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. For the record, Mike Dion with BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway in Meriden, Connecticut. I am a professional engineer and a professional traffic operations engineer with over 25 years experience. I'm going to share my screen, so sorry, Gareth, I will knock you out. Just so you guys have something to look at instead of just listening to me talk. You can see the presentation.
Yes, we can see.
Excellent. So what we did is we did do a full traffic impact study for this site. Why do we do a traffic impact study? To determine any impact to the due to the development, due to the traffic generated by it, and whether or not any mitigation should be proposed for the site due to this traffic. What we look at is the build condition for different scenarios. Typically, the conditions, a no build because we want to project into the future for when this development will be built, and then the build condition with it. What we also looked at was the AM commuter peak, which would be 1 hour between 7 and 9 a.m. when there's the most traffic on the road for that hour. The PM commuter peak, same thing. And the Saturday midday peak, which is typically a shopping peak. It's not a ton of shopping in the area, but there is the Stop and Shop, so we understand that there will be a little bit more traffic on Saturday. So we wanted to take a look at that as well. This is, as Gareth had shown before, an overview of where the site is. At the off-ramp from I-95 South, we studied the intersection right there, the signalized intersection. We also looked at East Industrial Road at Leeds Island Road. We looked at the other on-ramp to I-95 right there at Leeds Island Road, and also the on-off ramps from 95 North with Gould Lane. What we do is we go out and do a data collection effort. We do traffic counts at all those intersections for those peak hours that I mentioned. We did these counts in February of 2024. As I mentioned, AM, PM, and Saturday. We also sent our traffic counts up to Connecticut DOT Policy and Planning to get their approval, make sure that they were good with the counts. We do that on all our studies just to give everyone that little bit extra level of comfort that somebody else has looked at them. We also do a field inventory where we want to go out, take pictures. We get traffic signal plans from the Department of Transportation. We want to make sure that those plans accurately reflect what's out in the field. So we go out and do that. It was very easy for me. I can say I do live in North Branford, so I drive through the area 6 times a week because I go to the YMCA either before or after work. So I'm either going through there in the morning on my way to Meriden or on my way home from Meriden because I go to the Y. We look at the no build condition. And what that is, we projected our traffic counts to 2025 when we expect to build this. And look at the traffic during that period to make sure that there's, no issues in the no build condition. We also discussed with the town and the Office of State Traffic Administration, make sure there's nothing else approved in the area and there were no other approved developments that we'd have to include traffic for. Then we do our build analysis. We take these intersections, we look at the vehicular access where it's going to be on East Industrial Road. It's just the one access point. We take our traffic volumes that we did, we project them out to 2025, which is just a 1-year projection at about a 1% growth rate. And then what we do is we use the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual to generate the expected trips from the convenience store. The ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers, has been around for 70 years and collecting data for different types of land uses. And that's where we come up with the expected number of trips for the site. After we take those, we take our no build condition with our new site traffic, add them together, and that's our build analysis. And according to the Institute of Transportation Engineers, looking at the 3 peaks that we have, it would be expected to generate about 170 trips in the AM and 145 in the PM trips, peak hours, I mean. And that includes what we call a diverted trip, which is basically traffic that's already on the road, that this is not their primary destination. So it's traffic coming off of 95 South, getting gas, getting back on 95 South. So it's, what I mean, it's not like you weren't leaving your house to go to that convenience store. It was a place that you were going on your way to somewhere else. Yeah, and we accounted for 55% of that traffic as being that. That's the most the DOT would allow us to do. According to the Institute of Transportation, we could go up to about 65% diverted or passed by traffic. We take all those numbers, put them into a program called Synchro, where we analyze the traffic, and it gives out a letter grade, A through F, just like you're in high school, A being the best, F being the worst, and that's delay at each intersection. So it's basically about how many seconds you expect to sit at a traffic light before you expect it to move again. So we looked at all of those peak hours, put them into the program, and come up with what they call that level of service, which is that letter grade. And as you can see from our charts here, that between the build and the no build condition, there is no level of service change at any of the intersections. The levels of service stay the exact same before and after. So at the end of the day, what we recommend is making sure that, if there's any vegetation that's within the sightline triangle at the driveway, we want to make sure that's clear. So make sure that any of the landscaping that's being done is going to be less than 2.5 feet tall, so car drivers can see over it. And we want to make sure that there's a stop sign or stop bar installed at the site driveway. And with that, I'll open it up to questions or turn it back to Gareth and see if you have questions at the end.
I think that concludes our presentation. Unless Sarah wanted to add anything at the end.
Nope, I think we've covered it. We're happy to answer any questions and go into more detail on anything that we need to. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Evan, why don't you review the staff report with us?
Sure. I think the applicant went over most of the details of the project. They meet the bulk requirements of the IG2 district, as well as the landscaping requirements and the off-street parking requirements. They did make some changes to the lighting plan, and it is in compliance. Their grading meets the 3-to-1 slope. The town engineer had asked some questions about drainage, but they satisfied his concerns today. I sent out to the commission the town engineer comments, the original town engineer comments this morning. The applicant submitted some supplemental information, and I followed up this afternoon with the town engineer's comments that his concerns were satisfied. Specifically, he had requested that turning exhibit for the trucks and an explanation for the over 30-foot maximum driveway width, which this commission will have to make a determination on tonight. But again, the town engineer's comments were satisfied. They received a variance in May to allow a retail establishment over 3,000 square feet from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And based on the application materials, it appears that the special exception criteria is satisfied. Staff recommends one finding that the proposed use of the property is consistent with the special exception criteria. Also, 3 conditions. 1, that prior to the start of construction, erosion control measures shall be installed. 2, any measures necessary to control any dust and any additional measures to control soil and erosion determined to be necessary shall be installed. Any lighting installed has to be compliant with section 6.7. And I also wanted to add that any landscaping has to be maintained as an ongoing requirement of this approval if the commission feels comfortable with it. But that's about it.
Thank you, Evan. Questions, comments from commission members before we open up to the public? Hearing none, let's see if there's any public comment. Does any member of the public wish to comment? See anyone, Evan?
Just to reiterate, down at the bottom of your screen, there's a raise hand button you can use to indicate you'd like to speak or type into the chat. I do not see anybody though.
Thank you, Evan. Does the applicant or its consultants have any additional comments?
Well, if the commission has no questions that we can answer and, feels that, we've answered everything with our presentation and with Evan's staff report and the satisfaction of the town engineer, then we have nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Any further comments from commission members or staff? Hearing none, then I think we can close these matters as public hearings, and this may be something we can take up in a little bit. Thank you very much. So that brings us then to item number 6, which is Sonia Shannon, applicant owner, 9 East Main Street. This is a special exception, 2-family residential development proposal, and I don't know if the applicant is ready to proceed with that.
Good evening, Jim Preddy, Criscolo Engineering. Here at 420 East Main Street in Brantford, representing Sonia Shannon. As stated, the project is at 9 East Main Street. It's an existing single-family home that they'd like to turn into a 2-family home with just some interior improvements. No building additions or anything are proposed. I will share the screen just so you can see the survey. Hopefully you're looking at the survey. Existing home, there's a shed in the backyard. There's already parking for a few cars. We're just going to add some additional crushed stone for a 4th car, because for 2-family you need 2 spaces per unit. Other than that, there's no other outside work being proposed. I believe, according to Evan's staff report, we meet generally all the conditions. There was a comment about no landscaping plan, but basically there's mature trees and landscaping that is here already, and none of it's planning on being removed. So I believe, and I have a photo I could show you, but right now there's multi-family houses on both sides, and across the street is the restaurant on the V there with some units above. So this area has quite a few multi-family buildings in it already. If I stop share, I think I can share. So, hopefully you're seeing the photo now. But this is the house we're speaking of. Again, there's mature trees and landscaping all around here. So there isn't any more being proposed at this point. Again, and the work is internal, so that's really all there is to it. I mean, there's not a lot of activity going on here.
Chuck Anders here. Thank you, Mr. Preddy. Evan, did you prepare a staff report on this one?
I did, like Mr. Preddy stated, is conversion of a single-family home with no site plan changes other than the addition of a parking space into a 2-family residence. They meet the bulk requirements of the BR district. There was no outdoor lighting proposed. However, I did add a condition that lighting has to be compliant with section 6.7. The application, based on the application materials, it appears that the special exception criteria are generally satisfied. They appeared before the Town Center Board on October 9th and received a vote to accept. Staff recommends one finding, that the proposed use is consistent with the special exception criteria, and any lighting has to be compliant with section 6.7.
Thank you, Evan. Any questions or comments from anyone before we open it up to the public? Hearing none, then let's see if there's any public comments on this proposal. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this application? 9 East Main Street again, the conversion to 2-family dwelling. Evan, you see anybody?
I do not see anybody.
Okay, then we can close the public portion. Does the applicant have any further comments?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Any further comments from commission members or staff?
Nope.
Okay, this is something we can probably take up in a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Preddy. Brings us into our next item, which is number 7 on our public hearing. It's Darren Capiobanca, applicant and owner, 9 High Plains Road, special exception for grading. Is the applicant ready to proceed on that one?
Yes.
You can proceed.
How are you guys? I got my father, Tom Capobianco, here. Just bought a house on 9 High Plains Road with my 3-week-old wife. So we wanted to, there's some dips in the front yard, and we wanted to, fill that void. So we met with Evan, met with Jamie. So we got the survey done, and we're asked to be on here. So it's kind of where we're at, but
yeah, there would have to be grading on the back. Evan's familiar with it. I think, is it Jane? Who came out with Jamie? Jane?
Yeah, Jane.
Jane came out. We walked the property about 2 weeks ago. We had the back of that property has a grade that's been there for a few hundred years on the back. And I guess this got triggered because of the contractor that was doing the work on the property, taking the weeds off the slope. We wanted to make it grass because the left and right side had grass on the slope, but straight ahead in the back, that slope had weeds. So we said, let's just make it where it's the grade's not that bad. Should be able to cut the grass there and get rid of the weeds. So that's what we did. In the meantime, in doing so, as he scraped that slope to make it grass, we had a heavy rainstorm. He would take the grading from there and just level out the front lawn. The front lawn is exactly the same grade as it was from the curb to the front walkway. It just had some dips in the front lawn, and he leveled it off in the front. In the meantime, there was a heavy storm, which ended up triggering, which we didn't know. He didn't have a silt fence up, which was his mistake. We didn't know anything about that. So it went into the street, and not knowing from the street, it went into a catch basin and traveled, I don't know, a quarter of a mile through other catch basins and ended up in someone's pond on Hickory Hill. So as Inland Wetlands told me, it was an expensive lesson. So we did not know catch basins empty into neighbors' ponds. So at least in this case, so we put up the silt fence that day. My contractor did. And then I just finished sodding 31,500 square feet of sod has been installed on the slope, the yard, the back. That's when Jane and Jamie came out about 2 weeks ago, because we wanted to remove the silt fence and just finish the sod at the silt fence where the curb was, the last 2 feet on the perimeter, which we now have done. So the property is 100% fully sodded. And that's what I think triggered this hearing.
Thank you. Anything else or at this time?
That's pretty much the detail of the scope of work there.
Great. Okay. Evan, do you want to review your staff report with us?
Sure. Like Mr. Capobianco said, this was a special exception triggered by the clearing and regrading of a 5,000 square foot area. The soil erosion controls have been put up. They're working through a cease and correct order with the Inland Wetlands Commission. I received a written email from the Inland Wetlands Director stating that she does not see a reason why the Planning and Zoning Commission could not act on this application while they're working through the cease and correct order. It's not an actual application with the Inland Wetland Commission. And she said it would be helpful to confirm whether or not the current site condition is permittable. So she recommended that we act tonight on this application. They meet the bulk requirements of the R5 district. They meet the 3-to-1 slope requirements. Based on the application materials, it appears that the applicant satisfies the special exception criteria. And staff recommends one finding, that this approval exclusively applies to the already completed grading and clearance of vegetation on the property known as High Plains Road, 9 High Plains Road, owned by the applicant Darren Capobianco. We've added 2 conditions. One, that any lighting has to be compliant with section 6.7, and 2, necessary measures to control any dust and any additional measures to control soil and erosion. determined to be necessary shall be installed. And that is about it.
Chuck Keener, Chair. Thank you, Evan. Any questions, comments from commission members before we open up to the public? Hearing none, then let's open up to the public. Does any member of the public wish to comment? Evan, you see anybody?
Just to reiterate, there's a raise hand button down at the bottom of your screen. You can type it in the chat that you'd like to participate. I do not see anybody though.
Does the applicant have anything further it'd like to add?
Nothing on our end.
No, pretty much.
Any further comments from commission members or staff? Hearing none, then we'll close this matter as a public hearing. And again, something maybe we'll take up in a little bit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brings then to item number 8, which is North Branford Road LLC and 23 North Main Street LLC, care of Dan Iamuno, applicant owner, 13 and 23 North Main Street. This is a special exception for an auto body repair. I believe this is something we had before us and previously and some resubmitted, but they also have submitted, I guess they didn't submit the grading application until recently. So, and that's under new business. So my understanding, the thought was to open this and continue this to our next meeting, and then we could hear them both at the same time. Is that correct?
It's actually a parking modification special exception.
Oh, parking modification special exception. That's the second one, not a grading. I'm so used to gradings. Okay.
There's a mistake in the listing in actually the agenda itself, but we won't be taken up tonight anyway, so we don't really.
So we should open it because we've advertised it, but we'll open it and continue it to our next meeting, which would be November 7th. Does that sound right, Evan and Harry?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to open item number 8. If you're here on that, we're going to defer any comment, defer any presentation so we can hear them both at once. And again, that is, so that'll be continued to our next meeting, and we'll hear that along with the parking modification application. Again, our next meeting is November 7th. Starts at 7 p.m. Also a Zoom meeting, same Zoom address. So with that, I think that completes our public hearing items. Why don't we go ahead and take up the items that I look like might be able to address tonight. First one, I think, is items number 4 and 5, right? And that was the 5 East Industrial Road. We heard from, that was the East Industrial Road, the convenience store application. Heard from the engineer, the traffic expert, the attorney on that one. No public comments. Evan, you want to pull up your staff report?
Yeah, can you guys see it?
Yes. So I think you reviewed that with us, and I think you added that number 4 from the one that was mailed out to us. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Before we actually vote on the proposed findings and conditions, do anyone have any discussion about this? Anyone want to make any comments? Seem fairly straightforward. Seems to comply with the regs. No traffic issues. Unusual lot, and but any commission members have any comments?
Before you guys vote, could you make a determination on the wider driveway entrance?
Okay, should that be a separate motion? Or is
Harry,
it
what do
part?
you think?
I think it's best if it's a separate motion, just to I think you technically modifying the requirement.
And we have authority to do that in the regs, right?
Yeah, based on the town engineer's recommendation, yes.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, assuming that I know I didn't hear any comments. Looks fairly straightforward. So why don't we start with that? Someone make a motion to authorize the widening of the driveway entrance as recommended by the town engineer for turning movements and with respect to this application. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's per section 612C1, just for the record.
Per section 612. So I want to make that motion.
Fred
Marcy
Russo will make that motion.
We'll give
Marcy.
Fred the motion, Marcy the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo's in favor.
Marcy,
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Vayuso,
Joe Vayuso in favor.
and Chair is also in favor. And then as to the application itself, again, the staff has made a recommended findings. He reviewed it in this staff during the public hearing, and also it's displayed in front of us right now. So if it looks good, does someone make a motion to approve the application by adopting the findings and 4 conditions in the staff report?
Marcy will make that motion.
Motion approved by Marcy. Is there a second?
Chadwick will second.
Second, Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo's in favor.
Marcy Palusi,
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Chadwick.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
I mean, Joe Vayuso. Joe Vayuso. Too many Joes here. Joe Vayuso is in favor, and Chair is also in favor. I'm sorry. Okay. So that application is approved. So thank you very much, everyone. So let's move on then to item number 6. That's the 9 East Main Street special exception, 2-family residential. Again, Mr. Preddy presented that. It looked like there were actually the only changes were interior changes, no changes to the site itself, and it's in an area where there appears to already be a number of 2 families. Anyone have any comments on this one they'd like to make? And if no one has any comments, someone make a motion to approve the application by adopting the findings and condition that's recommended in the staff report that Evan has presently displayed in front of us.
Fred Russo will make that motion.
Motion approved by Fred. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second, Joe Chadwick. Further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo's in favor.
Marcy,
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Vayuso.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Great. Thanks. So that application is approved. And then I think we can also take up item number 7. That's the Mr. Capibianco, 9 High Plains Road. That's the grading public hearing that we just heard. Looks like it's been completed. And Wetlands recommended we move forward with this. Again, no public comment on this. Is there anyone have any comments about it? Not someone make an motion to approve the application by adopting the finding and 2 conditions in the staff report presently displayed in front of us.
Joe Vayuso moves to approve with those 2 changes.
Motion to approve by Joe Vayuso with the finding and 2 conditions. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second, Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo's in favor.
Marcy,
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Vayuso,
Joe in favor.
and Chair is also in favor. So that application is approved. That brings us now to minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes, September 19th and October 3rd, that are on our agenda. Why don't we start with September 19th?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out that the September 19th minutes weren't sent in the packet. If you're scrambling around trying to find the hard copy, we actually were only able to send them digitally, just so everyone knows. And I don't know if everyone has equivalent access to emails and so forth, but just make sure everyone knows that for you.
Thanks, Harry. Yeah, I did notice there were 2 sets of October 3rd, so I did look online and saw that Michelle had sent them out. So I have them, but I don't know if everyone else does. If not, we can just defer them. Does anyone not want to approve them? Or is you hold off, or you want to just go ahead?
Do you need someone to make a motion?
Yeah, motion.
I'll make that motion to approve those minutes.
Okay. Fred makes a motion to approve the September 19th minutes. Is there a second?
Chadwick will second. Give it to
Second,
Joe
Joe
Vayuso.
Chadwick. Oh, Joe Vayuso seconds.
Yeah. He beat me to it.
Joe, it's got a quicker trigger. Any further discussion? All in favor? Joe Chadwick?
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo?
Fred Russo is in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
And Joe Vayuso.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, so those minutes are approved. How about the October 3rd one? Someone will make a motion with respect to the October 3rd minutes, approve them or make any conditions or changes.
Chadwick will make that motion.
Joe Chadwick moves to approve the October 3rd, 2024 minutes of our meeting. Is there a second?
Joe seconds.
Joe Vayuso seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Joe Chadwick?
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo?
Fred Russo is in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Vayuso?
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Chair is also in favor. So those minutes are approved. That brings us then to old business. And I think item number 1 is again scheduled for a public hearing on November 21st. Item number 2, this is Matthew and Stephanie Milano. I think this is one we had waived the public hearing. Is that right? And we may be able to proceed with that one. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is the applicant ready to proceed with, it's Matthew and Stephanie Milano, 115 Thimble Islands Road, a special exception modification for grading. Is the applicant ready to present on that one?
I don't believe Mr. Milano's in attendance tonight, but I can show the plans and give a summary of my staff report. That's okay.
Okay. Certainly.
1 second. So this is a single family home application that was in front of you guys in 2022 for this interior lot off of Thimble Island Road across from the theater. They submitted a 6.8 to us during the construction. This grade was changed just a little bit off of what was originally approved, and a retaining wall was installed on both sides of the house. So this just required a modification of the special exception 6.8 approval. That's really the only difference between the approved plan and this one. They meet the 3-to-1 slope requirement. And that is about it. No requirement for erosion control measures because all the work has already been done. And based on the application materials, the special exception criteria is satisfied, and you guys voted to waive this public hearing back at the October 3rd meeting.
Thanks, Evan.
I come from the source in Chigron.
Thanks, Evan. I think you did a staff report on this, and there was a finding, and looks like a couple standard conditions.
Oh, yeah, sorry. One finding that the special exception criteria is satisfied. The 2 conditions I proposed were all conditions of the previous approvals shall remain in full force and effect as they may apply, and any lighting has to be compliant with section 6.7.
Are there any comments from any members of commission or staff? Okay, it seems fairly straightforward. Do you want to display your staff report? I know it's pretty standard, but I don't know if you have it available.
You got it.
Fairly standard conditions. So if no one has any comments or questions, someone make a motion to approve the application by adopting the staff recommended finding in 2 conditions.
Fred Russo will make that motion.
Motion by Fred to approve with the findings and conditions. Is there a second?
Chadwick makes that in a second.
Joe Chadwick seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo's in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Bayuso.
Joe Bayuso in favor.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, so looks like that application is approved and it's off our agenda. Great. So then item number 3 under old business, again, we need to schedule a public hearing for that one. And item number 4 is a zoning text amendment. That's the Stony Creek Architectural Review Board proposed changes, and that's scheduled for November 7th. So that's it for old business. There's a number of new business items.
Chuck,
yes,
Fred Russo. I'm not sure, but did you miss correspondence?
Yeah,
I
think I did. Good call. Good catch, Fred. Any correspondence, Harry?
Despite that, we have no correspondence. So
perfect.
But that's, you never know. So thanks.
You never know.
That's right.
Okay, so let's go on to new business. And item number 1, Melinda Formica, owner 21 Burr Street. I think we need a public hearing for this one, right? So we'll have to set up a public hearing date for that one. And we'll do that in consultation with staff, I assume. Is that right, Harry?
Harry Smith, Town Planner, yes.
Okay. And item number 2, that's the Premier. And again, that was the grading one that they needed to file to go with the existing public hearing. So that we'll hear that one at our next meeting on November 7th, along with the continuation of the special exception hearing that we opened at the last meeting. And then item number 3 and 4 both relate to lots in an approved subdivision, 175 Cherry Hill Road. And I guess and there's 2 of these. The first one is listed as a detention basin. You want to give us some background? I don't know if we're, I want to give a little background, and I don't know if the applicant is represented. We can talk about that, but why don't you start?
Before we get going, Harry Smith, Town Planner, just want to point out that both these items, the applicant has requested a waiver of the public hearing requirement, which is allowed for a special exception modification application. So that being the context of the discussion, until you vote on that, you probably don't want to get too far in the application, but I think you can have some discussion of what it is so you can feel comfortable whether you want to waive the public hearing or not.
Okay. So why don't we give us a little more background so we have information to decide whether or not to waive the public hearing.
Yeah, and with that, I'm going to defer to Evan to do that.
Okay.
The application at lot 11 is simply altering the grades in one of the rear yards of one of the lots that was approved for the installation of a pool. And the other is for a modification of the detention basin. And I think that's about it. I mean, we can let the applicant, Zach, Georgina, give a little summary if we want.
Sure. Yeah. Why don't we do that, and then we'll decide whether to waive the public hearing for one or both of these.
Harry, could you make Zach a co-host, please?
Sure.
Okay, everybody hear me all right?
We can.
Fantastic. May I also share screen? I'm not going to go into too in detail because I understand we want to have the the determination needs to be made, but I just want to, I think it'll be a little easier to look at what we're looking at here, right?
Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Fantastic. So the first thing on the agenda was the detention basin itself. What we're looking at here is a side by side. The left side is the existing conditions of the basin, and the right side is what we are proposing to restore close to the intended function of the basin. Presently, the basin has been partially constructed on site. This was is to be the primary stormwater system for the public utilities and several of the lots in terms of stormwater mitigation for, again, taking care of the Cherry Hill Extension new public right-of-way and several of the homes. The basin is to be part of the HOA's responsibilities. It exists as part of Lot 7 with a stormwater easement in favor of both the HOA and the town to allow for maintenance, primarily being for the HOA. What we have today is essentially a basin that's been partially constructed. It has the stormwater infrastructure entering the basin installed, including the hydrodynamic separator, catch basins within the proposed right-of-way. By zooming here, we can see here that we have catch basins installed, the hydrodynamic separator with overflow bypass, and so that is installed. The basin itself, if we look here, the blue rings represent the basin as proposed, and the top of that basin as proposed. And if any of you are apt at reading contours, you can see that this basin is presently about 35% undersized and has been utilized by some site changes from the contractor as a temporary settling basin, essentially resulting in a swimming pool, more or less, and not a detention basin that was reliant on infiltration. So what we're looking to do here is to give this a retrofit into the basin, restore it close to volumetrically, restore it to what was approved, and then because of the situation with it becoming silted and used as a temporary sediment basin, infiltration can't be relied upon. There's typically actions that can be taken, but without significant over excavation in an attempt to restore this, the most reliable option is to install a sand filter or some sort of under drain. By going this approach, it allows us to essentially get close to, not get close to, essentially mimic what was the original 2021 existing conditions. Obviously, the site currently is a lot of dirt and a new right-of-way, so going back to where we were from the approval standpoint is really where we want to be looking for the stormwater elements. As we are rolling up into Connecticut's rainy season, and the goal of this is to essentially restore the design function and allow it to function as intended. We really think that this is something that's more of an engineering matter to restore that function, and as such is not necessarily warranting of the public hearing. So that's the basic overview here. If there's any other further questions or any other illumination, feel free to ask. I can.
Thank you, Mr. Georgina. So the first question is, are we okay, or do we agree with the request to waive a public hearing on this? So why don't we, Joe Chadwick, any thoughts?
Yeah, Joe Chadwick is in favor of waiving a public hearing. I'm not sure what sort of greater public interest or input would be served by it.
Thanks, Joe. Fred?
I agree with Joe. I don't see a need to have a public hearing on something that I do believe is probably an engineering situation rather than something that's going to affect the surrounding neighbors. We've gone through this whole thing, and I think this is just a change that needs to be made. So I would be in favor of waiving the public hearing.
Thanks, Fred. Marcy?
Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted. No, I agree with everything. We don't need a public hearing.
Thanks. Joe Vayuso?
Yeah, I also agree. This is an engineering situation more than anything else.
Right. And I agree as well. So let's make a motion. Someone want to make a motion to waive the public hearing for item number 3, 175 Cherry Hill Road, Lot 7, the modification of the detention basin.
Fred Russo will make that motion.
Motion by Fred to waive the public hearing. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second, Joe Chadwick. Further discussion. All in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred,
Fred Russo's in favor.
Marcy,
I'm in favor.
and Joe Vayuza.
No in favor.
Okay, so why don't we get to the merits then of whether to approve the change. Seems to me that it's if the town engineer is good with it, it just seems like a technical issue that I would want our town engineer to look at it, but if he says fine. But that would sort of be my reaction to it.
We did receive some comments from the town engineer this afternoon. I hope Zach received them. I sent them over to him. So I do think there are some outstanding issues on his end. But I just want to bring that to his attention.
Yeah, I did receive those, Evan. Going through them, I don't think there's anything here that isn't a condition of approval level. Essentially, like it's very, very correctable, and some of them I think a conversation between the town engineer and myself would alleviate. If I can continue, Evan, do you want to run through his comments, or do you want me to just run through them and address? Because I have looked at these. So what we're seeing here is the email itself. So his comments were inlets of the basin at the end of the outlets should have energy dissipators. Details were included, but those were, for the sake of clarity, the drawing not included. I can add those to the drawing, but it's not a problem. In lieu of an open outlet discharge to a slope up gradient of the public road, he would recommend a new stormwater manhole be installed on lot 7 to connect to the outlet with a 12-inch PVC connection connecting to the existing catch basin within Cherry Hill Road. The existing catch basin should be inspected by Department of Public Works to determine if the existing structure is needed to be replaced or can accommodate a new pipe connection. I don't disagree with this. However, I would offer connecting into the new catch basin we just installed in the right-of-way, downgrading the basin. If we look here, what he's discussing is, come on, zoom in. There we go. We currently have this outlet from the underdrain daylighting and going essentially down a grassed swale path to connect into the right-of-way and then tie into these catch basins. We just installed these two brand new catch basins here. Rather than installing a manhole and coming along to tie in, I would recommend installing a manhole and tying into this basin, just because we know that that's new infrastructure. But I think that can be addressed between the town engineer and myself. It should be noted the revised basin assumes no infiltration, and that is stated. The calculations around this new basin are assuming no infiltration, as I can't rely upon it. The stormwater basin report has existing condition peak discharge table, which appears to represent the pre-development conditions not currently existing. The applicant should clarify the text of my stormwater report does state that this is referring to the original conditions of it, but I can revise that report no problem and fix that heading. The proposed retrofit shows proposed peak flows almost exactly matching the pre-development peak flows from the entire site. It should be noted the retrofit peak flows will be an increase from the approved design. This is correct, that it's an increase from the approved design, but it is still matching the original conditions, the 2021 conditions. The rationale for this, and this is just so you guys are all aware, because of the situation with the basin having essentially a zero infiltration rate, even with the sand filter, there's it's a slow drain. So by allowing for this increased flow out with a vertical stage discharge pipe included in the sand filter, it allows for us to empty the basin in a timely fashion so that it has capacity for back-to-back or future storms. This was designed specifically to get as close, drain the basin as fast as possible while not exceeding 2021 conditions. And then his last comment was the stormwater calculation summaries for the detention basin use a corrugated pipe as the secondary routing out of the pond. There is no call out on the plans for this type of pipe. The plan should be labeled the pipe inspected at install if corrugated is to be used. If smooth wall pipes to be used, the calculations should be revised to reflect that condition.
You've got mail.
The pipe he's referring to if you can look right here at the screen, it's labeled with the CD line coming through the berm and daylighting. That is this proposed corrugated plastic pipe. Why I'm specifically choosing to go with a corrugated pipe versus smooth lined is the decrease in velocity through that pipe. So it's a lower velocity exiting that pipe, which is going to be beneficial in terms of limiting any erosion with this pipe daylighting onto the grass. If Mr. Offerly wants to go with, we agree to go with the manhole and tie into the catch basin. I'm fine switching to smooth lined and amending that the HydroCAD report for him. But it was selected with that daylighting in mind to intentionally limit that velocity within the pipe. And those.
Thank you, Mr. George. It sounds like you can address one way or the other, but I'm not ready to approve this with conditions. I think you should have that dialogue. If there's plan changes as a result of that, you do that. And then we take it up in the next meeting. I mean, we saw tonight where town engineer submitted a bunch of comments. They responded. We got another memo back saying, yep, all my comments have been addressed. And it sounds like they're capable and they can be addressed. But this is first time on the agenda. I for this one at least, I'm not comfortable just saying we would approve it with conditions. I think let's just go ahead and discuss it with the town engineer, get it fixed, which it sounded like he can do. And then once it's clear as to what the changes are, we can approve it. That's my suggestion. Those are my thoughts. I don't know what others think.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Just start to interject, but there is also potential need for approval by the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency, which, if determined by the agency to be required, would prevent the commission from acting by state law until that action's completed or there's a finding there's no jurisdiction. So at this point, we've got an email from the Inland Wetlands Environmental Director, and I believe the question will be taken up in the next Inland Wetlands Agency meeting on the 24th.
Okay. Well, that's another reason we can't really act on this tonight. For this one at least. Anyone else have any thoughts?
Marcy here.
Yes.
To me, this just seems pretty technical, and it seemed like Zach had responses to all the concerns of Mr. Upperly. I'm not really clear why we can't just let the two of them work it out and let the, make an approval condition on the engineer being in agreement so that they can then, especially if they have to go to wetlands, so then they can get through wetlands. Because these seems rather technical. They're not changing the intent of the overall project. It's really just trying to make the basin engineering function, more to what John wants to see.
Thanks, Marcy. I think you mentioned that the fact that they may have to go to wetlands means we can't approve it. By statute, wetlands has to decide first before we can even. So that kind of moots it. And the other thing is that, yeah, it sounds like something they can agree to, but I think it's always good to make sure there is an agreement. Yeah, I don't want to make something condition and then it turns out that they don't actually, it's just smoother, I think, to say, okay, now we know what it is. And it sounds like it's fully capable of being done. That's why I waived the public hearing. It sounds very technical, but that would be the way I think to go. And again, it's first time on the agenda. Other thoughts from anyone?
Fred Russo says, I agree with you.
I agree.
Anyone else?
Joe Vayuso agrees too. I agree with Chuck.
Okay, so yeah, and I think technically we have to wait for wetlands anyway. So it's just going to stay on the agenda. Hopefully, everything's worked out by the next meeting. So, and wetlands will make their determination. Mr. Georgina, you can speak, with the town engineer specifically, get those ironed out. Let's go on to the next one then, which is for lot 11. So you want to tell us what the first one? I get same item, I guess. First, if we need to waive the public hearing for that one, and then
absolutely. Give me. I'll do the exact same approach here. Just let me get to those materials. Okay, I want to close that. Not that one. There we go. Okay. So for lot 11, previously approved did not have a pool. So what we are looking at here is the previous subdivision approval resulted in the grading for the house terminating prior to the upland review area. And with the addition of the pool, this application has now been through wetlands and received an approval. But addition of the pool is now going to be pushing this grading further out, approximately 4,600 feet or so, beyond what was in the original subdivision approval, grading wise. So that's really the crux of what this entire application is they want a pool, and our grading from what was originally theirs and has a 4,600 square foot impact.
Okay, so you modify the grading. Oh,
correct.
Okay. Okay. That seems not a major change. I mean, in terms of the public hearing stuff, what are people's thoughts? Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering what contribution a public hearing would make to inform the engineering decision.
Yeah,
and I'm feeling that it's probably a really, it would be a totally pro forma thing if we tried to have a public hearing for it.
Okay. Fred?
I agree with Joe.
Marcy?
I agree. Public hearing is excessive. I mean, these are small changes to a previously approved plan. They're just technical in nature in my mind.
Thanks. Joe Ayuso?
Yeah, I also agree the same. I'm assuming you're talking an in-ground pool.
Correct.
Yeah, so that will determine even more flattening of grading. So, yeah, I think it's a minor issue. I think it should be okay.
Okay, I agree as well. So I want to make a motion to waive the public hearing for this special exception modification for this pool.
Chadwick will make that motion.
Motion to waive the public hearing by Joe Chadwick. Is there a second?
Joe Vayuso seconds.
Second by Joe Vayuso. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick?
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo?
Fred Russo's in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Vayuso?
Joe Vayuso in favor.
And chair's also in favor. Okay, so we waive the public hearing. What's anything else you got for us on this?
I just history-wise, I always like to give a quick overview of what the site is currently and where we're going. So just if you want to bear with me real quick, I'll keep it very quick. Back in 2021, the site was historically as a farm use, had been left for a decade or more to it essentially overgrow. Presently had an emerging field species that was mowed a couple times annually, and a growing woods and brush incursion in the northwest corner, and then as well an established woods and brush in the southeast corner of the property. What we're looking to do overall here is to develop it into a single family home with the in-ground pool. Due to the size of the house and the pool, we did end up having to go to wetlands. We are going to be developing into the wetland, or the 100-foot upland review area. Wetlands did have some conditions of approval. We ended up installing a vegetated swale to address the Coltec infiltrator system. We installed to offset the increase in the size of the house. Specifically, the pool is designed to have a self-containing gravel infiltration system. So essentially, the edge of the patio is surrounded with a gravel inlet. That inlet, as stormwater sheets off of this, falls into the gravel inside and is slowly infiltrated into the ground along the pool. So essentially, it offsets itself in terms of impervious surface. To obviously, the pool needs a level spot, so that results in the grading being pushed out further to the toe. We are, as this is a bit of a subdivision, I know that a question Wetlands had, just to be on the same page, is this does show grading onto Lot 10, as Lot 10 has not yet been developed. The goal is to tie this into natural grade as quickly as possible. And when Lot 10 is eventually developed, this grade will be picked up as originally planned and continuing to tie into the foundation of that structure as well. We're able to decrease peak flows. Both this house is tied into that earlier mentioned basin. So we're able to decrease peak flows going to that basin as well as to the rear of the property, which is then draining towards the wetland located on 9 Abbey Road. And I think that really gives us a good overview of where we're at. If there's anything specific question-wise, I'm more than willing and ready to answer. But I think that gives a good overview.
Thank you, Mr. Giorgino. Does staff have any comments on this?
Yeah, I prepared a report. I think Zach did a good job of summarizing the project. Some minor changes for a single-family home to install a pool, or minor change to the grades in that rear. Just so happens to be within 100 feet of a wetland. They did receive approval from the Inland Wetland Commission for this one. They meet the earth slope 3-to-1 ratio requirements. And based on the application materials, it appears the special exception criteria are satisfied. You guys had waived the public hearing. Staff recommends one finding, that the special exception criteria appears to be satisfied, and 3 conditions. Prior to start of construction, erosion control measures shall be installed. Condition 2, any lighting has to be compliant with section 6.7. And 3, any necessary measures to control any dust or any additional measures to control soil and erosion determined to be necessary shall be installed.
Okay. So this one doesn't have any of the outstanding engineering stuff, looks like. So, and Evan, I think you had that as, it was in the report that you sent out. So I don't know if you want to display that.
Sure, 1 second.
Let me stop sharing.
Okay, does anyone have any comment with respect to this one? Looks like this one we could approve tonight. If no one has any comments, I'll make a motion to approve the modification by adopting the findings in the 3 conditions in the staff report displayed in front of us.
Fred Russo will make that motion.
Motion to approve by Fred. Is there a second?
Marcy, I'll second it.
Second by Marcy. Further discussion. All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo's in favor.
Marcy,
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Vayuso,
Joe Vayuso in favor.
and Chair is also in favor. So that application is approved. Thank you, Mr. Giorgino.
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
That brings us then, continuing with our agenda, number 5 of new business is it's a special exception for an accessory apartment at 43 and 49 Summer Island Road, and we'll need to schedule a public hearing for that one. And then we have numbers 6 and 7. That's the one I think we that's 1201 West Main Street, Motor Vehicle Services. That's the one that just was withdrawn, right? And then they've resubmitted. So
yeah, Harry Smith Town Planners. This is basically replacement applications for the 2 that were withdrawn. They did it early enough to allow us to submit a public hearing advertisement for the next meeting on November 7th to kind of keep everything moving.
Okay, and that's the one where we had the peer review and the traffic.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and item number 8, North Branford Road LLC. This is the 13 and 23 North Main Street. This is the parking modification application that goes along with the other application that we opened and continued. So we'll hear this one on November 7th. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so technically the listing on the agenda should be a special exception for a modification of parking requirements. It's application number 24-10.8. And the public hearing is, Evan, I think, or Chuck, you mentioned, is already set for the 7th. And it was
Okay, yeah,
today in 17.
right. So there are corrections on the agenda there. Okay. Okay, that's it for new business. And then other business, we did item number 1, which is the 824. Item number 2, subdivision modification 292 and 300 Leeds Island Road. What's that about, Harry?
I can defer to Evan on this one.
Or Evan?
This is a modification of a subdivision. It is a pretty minor change to one of the lot lines associated with it. Doug Anderson is the applicant. Harry, could you make him a co-host? Doug, I wasn't sure if you were going to share your screen, or I think I have the plan ready if you want me to.
Doug's all set.
Yep. Doug Anderson, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, Evan, if you wouldn't mind, that would be great. If you could share that.
You got it.
So this is Doug Anderson. AHD Holdings is we're the applicant owner of the property. This is the last single family home in a three lot subdivision over on Leeds Island Road. And basically, pretty simple request. The lot 1 is a home we are finishing construction on now, probably 95% complete. Lot 2 is an existing home it's been occupied for about a year or so. And given just the way the configuration of the original lot lines were, if you look on the plan, there's a dotted line that was the original lot line. And basically what you can see is it's they're fairly parallel towards the back of the property, and then it kind of dove hard and came kind of into the front of lot 2, and then kind of dove back into the kind of zigzagging kind of like form. So given the site conditions, given the way where the lot 2 house sat with the way the lot 1 house configuration is, trying to straighten that line out to get the driveways to flow better, to eliminate a property line that would kind of literally be in right in front of lot 2. We're proposing to just modify that line slightly. So what we've done is we've taken the line and moved it about 10 feet towards lot 2 on the back half of the lot, and then eliminated the kind of the deep dive, if you will, of the triangle into the front of lot 2 to allow his front yard, if you will, to kind of just feel and flow better versus having a property line that kind of dove in front of it. So it's a pretty close swap within 1,000 square feet of land area. Both lots are in excess of the zone requirement of 20,000 square feet. Lot 1 being 3 times that size, and lot 2 about 2.5 times that size. So really, it's really just kind of an aesthetic, functional request that we're asking for that line to just be straightened out a little bit. And the owner of lot 2 is in agreement with it. We submitted a letter from him, and we just all feel it's a better solution given the field conditions that exist out there.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Evan, did you have any comments on this?
No, but this afternoon I had a meeting with the project engineer, and I just asked about there is an existing home on this lot. I think the original or the as-built showed it at 54 feet away from this property line, and he confirmed that they're still meeting the setback requirements of 50 feet with this lot line adjustment.
Are there any other thoughts or comments from staff about this?
Nope.
So technically it's not a subdivision application. It's not a re-subdivision. I think our regulations probably say that if you're modifying something, you should get approval. Is that what it is? So
yes, section 610, modification of approval. Any subdivider seeking to modify an approved plan, including but not limited to any revision of lot lines, shall lot lines shown on such plan or any condition of approval shall file an application for a modification with the commission, together with the required fee.
And according to staff, doesn't think that the modification creates any zoning violations.
No, it does not appear to.
Okay. Anyone have any thoughts or comments? Does someone make a motion to approve the lot line modification for this subdivision at 292 and 300 Leeds Island Road?
Joe Vayuso moves to approve.
Motion to approve the lot line revision by Joe Vayuso. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second, Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo is in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Vayuso.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. That brings us then to the planner's report. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
Harry Smith.
Harry Smith, town planner. Before we get there, however, and I know we're so close to the end, I'd like to request that the commission add to the agenda a question that arose this afternoon. It's a question of interpretation of section 6.03B of the subdivision regulations, which I will put up on the screen for you. But first, you probably ought to tell me whether you'd like to take this up or not.
Yes, let's do it while you're here.
Speaking of that,
You want to do it afterwards?
Yeah, we'll get to that. So anyway, yeah, motion to add the interpretation question of section, whatever it is, 6.0 something of the subdivision regulations.
There you go.
Yeah, someone make that motion?
Fred Russo will make that motion.
Fred makes that motion to add to the agenda. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second, Chadwick. Further discussion. All in favor, Joe Chadwick?
Chadwick in favor.
Fred Russo?
Fred Russo is in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
And Joe Vayuso?
Joe in favor.
And Chair's in favor. So it's added to the agenda. Why don't you explain what's the question?
Okay, as we're speaking, in front of you should be appearing section 6.03 of the subdivision regulations. And this has to do with, well, I won't even just say what's going on here. 6.03B requires prior to or concurrently with the recording of the Mylar of an approved subdivision, the submittal in a form satisfactory to town of all required grants to the town, a form ready for execution, property, easements, whatever, specifically easements for drainage, access, utility, other purposes in a form ready for execution. However, 603B1(2) doesn't say those easements are only easements for drainage, access, utility to the town. So that's really the gist of it, is that the applicant here in this particular case is wondering, what about easements to Eversource for if it's outside the any right-of-way associated with the subdivision? My understanding of how it's been interpreted previously, and we don't do a lot of subdivisions, is that if it's a utility easement going to Eversource, then we're not concerned with the form of the easement. We're not going to be holding up the recording of the Mylar, because often the specifics of where that easement is going to be may not be clear yet at that point in time. The applicant may not be ready to spend time having their engineer work with Eversource to determine exactly how everything's going to be laid out. You have a rough idea, usually the proposed draft easements on the plan. We've been distinguishing between easements to the town for sewers or whatever it is, and an easement to independent, other utilities and so forth. So that's my understanding, but I just wanted to confirm with the commission that you're all in agreement, because this is a subdivision that was recently approved, and they're probably going to try and record the plan early next month, I believe, or some point next month. Let's see, is there anything else? I did have a letter on this. I can tell you the exact situation if you'd like. It is concerning the Regal Cinema project. That's the PDD that was recently approved. And you may recall, as part of that, they're going to divide that whole site up into 3 lots. So, any questions?
No. So the question is that this reference in this subsection here, reference to required easements, we're interpreting this to mean the easements to the town, not just easements to third parties, utilities, or whatever.
Right. That's my understanding of how it's been applied prior. But
right. That makes sense just when you read the context. The one before it talks about grants to the town, subsection 1, and the one after it talks about any proposed conveyance to the town. So I think this whole subsection is talking about the documents. We want to make sure the documents of the stuff we're getting is in a form we're willing to accept.
Exactly.
That's what it kind of looks like to me. So I would agree with your interpretation.
Okay.
I don't know what anyone else thinks.
Chuck Ferruso?
Yeah.
Is Harry, I'm just asking, is Harry suggesting that additional language should be added to the to that part of the code, or no? Or is just you're saying the interpretation is what it is?
Yeah, probably at some point. I mean, if you have the interpretation, I think that settles the issue. But at some point, the subregs probably should be cleaned up. I mean, the problem is, frankly, we don't get a lot of applications. So rather than constantly tweaking with the subregs, unless it's an egregious thing, we haven't proposed an amendment. As long as there's an interpretation, it allows everything to proceed in a logical way. But at some point, yeah, it ought to be modified.
Okay, thank you.
As a matter of convenience, I think I'll go along with this, but in point of fact, 1 is specific about any grants to the town. Number 2 is any required easements. And any is pretty unambiguous as being any, a non-specific, a non-specific any. So in terms of plain and explicit reading of the language, I would be reading any easement. And I understand the logistical inconvenience of that, but I'm willing to go along with the interpretation of any town easement.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay, it sounds like there's a consensus then, or to agree that the required easements that need to be submitted to the commission to comply with this are the easements to the town for review, not necessarily third parties.
Okay, thank you. I'll accept that, and I think that's all I really need.
Okay. Okay, then let's move on to planner's report.
Okay, before we get to any other item, I just want to mention there was some discussion at the last meeting about we had, I believe, a communication from the chair of the Rules and Ordinances Committee of the Representative Town Meeting, Peter Henschel, about a public meeting hearing that was held by that committee this past Tuesday. And he was looking for some involvement by a representation from the commission itself at the meeting. I think I offered in lieu of other folks going to attend. And also, this is probably something that's going to take several months in terms of the committee's work. The proposal is for establishment of a harbor management commission as requested by the first selectman. One of the members of the commission kind of drew an analogy of the harbor management commission to basically zoning for the water. Right now, my understanding is there's a harbor master who doesn't have the specific guidance that would be provided by a commission or harbor management plan. And things are proceeding sometimes on the water in a little, was described the, Wild West fashion of moorings occurring over shellfish, fishing areas occasionally, issues with moorings, who owns them, who doesn't, what process, if any, which really doesn't seem to exist, to approve them, databases to keep track of them, and a variety of other issues. So to solve some of those concerns, this is being proposed, frankly, for examination. A lot of other towns, I think the majority along the shoreline, have them, and including Guilford, for example. And so I think the committee is going to be searching out examples to use and other communities' experience. There's a couple of things in the state statute, and I'll send all this information in writing to you so you have it if you're interested. I think Masimo and Sharon both expressed some interest, and Chuck, I think you were wanting to follow it as well. And the one thing that struck me was there's a required referral process for applications to the Planning and Zoning Commission, among other municipal agencies. This is for any proposal affecting the real property on, in, or contiguous to the harbor. And that is received by zoning, planning commission, or combined commissions, ZBA, historic district commissions, flood prevention, coastal climate resilience, and erosion control boards. And there's several other agencies cited. So the referral for any real property that's contiguous to the harbor is the area that the harbor management plan would address, and the plan itself would establish basically the area of its jurisdiction. Right now, my understanding is the proposal would be to have the entire shoreline be the harbor. So that possibly, we'll have to see what other communities do to deal with this, but there's a mandatory referral to the Harbor Management Commission 35 days ahead of any public hearing held by any of those agencies. So right now, with the legal notices, usually if an application comes in, let's say the Wednesday before the meeting we had on the 3rd of October, then our normal legal ads that are published in the Sound, a lot of the application to be heard on November 7th meeting, let's say, example. With the 35-day lead time before the public hearing, that would push the hearing date back to the second meeting in November. So I just raised that as a concern. I mean, there are other potential overlaps with the coastal management review considerations of the commission. So I think it's certainly worthwhile to track all this, and I'll get some information out to you. And I think they're going to have a Dropbox for things too. So we'll just sort of, try to keep you up to speed with this, and certainly comment as you wish.
For most coastal site plans, we don't have public hearings though, right?
That is correct, but a lot of things, like if it's a grading application,
Right.
Coastal resource, then there are certain occasions where there's a public hearing.
Yep.
So, I mean, we just want to, that's a potential issue. And I just sort of raised it as a concern to address more than anything else, because I just read it quickly. So it needs a lot more investigation, and there's going to be, quite a bit of time spent on it, as far as I understand.
Since you're talking about coastal stuff, I know Harry and I received a letter and a proposed conceptual zoning amendment about regulation of docks from somebody. Harry, I don't know if you ever contacted the guy, but
I have not yet, and frankly, I will get in touch with him and try to set up a meeting time. I am actually planning on being out next week, so I'll do that when I return, or involve Evan as well. We'll just try to educate him about the process, and frankly, probably should be aware of the proposal to do this, because this might address some of it.
Yep. Okay.
I have a question. I mean, basically doesn't the, was it DECD, what is the economic development, not economic, the environmental
Yeah,
protection control
Yeah.
mid-high line, and how does this dovetail with the already existing controls at the state level? We try to write new regulations that would be more stringent, or would, or are they too broad stroked as far as the particulars that, they feel that we need to have more oversight locally?
Yeah, I mean, excellent on point question. There's some stuff in the statute about the different review powers. And I think if you establish one of these, certain regulatory processes at DEP become more localized. And I did not get up to speed, frankly, on all of that, but I'll send you what I've got. And then there's going to be more investigation by the Rules and Ordinances Commission as they're sort of exploring this. But that's one thing in its favor, was noted in its favor at the meeting. And there were several folks that were interested in marina representatives, property owners along the shoreline, like probably about 25 people in the room.
So this is a commission that creates new commissions. Is that what the Rules and Ordinance Commission?
Well, the Rules and Ordinances Committee is, I guess, my understanding is the members of the RTM who are involved in this committee, they consider potential new ordinances, and they would evaluate it, study it, make a recommendation to the full RTM, who would need to vote on it to approve and adopt any new ordinances.
And because these are land-based or area-based, they're involving us.
Well, there is some overlap, but essentially this would apply to everything beyond the mean high water line in the water within whatever distance out from the shore that can be regulated.
Well, that's why I'm kind of that's why I'm kind of confused about the jurisdictional aspects and what authority.
I'm sorry, I am not totally, I frankly looked at it for like a half an hour, so I'm not in any way any kind of expert on this. I just sat through the meeting and read a few things.
Well, I just know there's a huge, it's like anything else with like, when you're over a certain amount of square footage with wetlands, it becomes a Army Corps of Engineer type scenario. And I know it's similar with, where the, justifying where the mean high tide level is for determining work at the shoreline. But, this seems to be more, who can put their boat where can we put docks? What's the impact on the environment along the shore based on what would normally be covered through like a CAM review? And maybe our CAM needs to be a little bit more tightened up so that we're thoroughly considering the ecological impacts along the shoreline. But, again, that's, just based on my experience, I just haven't heard of these things happening at a local level. And, maybe this is just where society is going because of what's happening with our environment.
All of that was part of it, I think. I'm sorry, Chuck, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, my understanding that if you adopt a harbor management commission, you create a harbor management commission, they have to adopt a harbor management plan. And that DEEP, which has jurisdiction beyond the mean high tide water, and we don't, the local zoning doesn't, has to comply with the harbor management plan. And the plan has to, before you can adopt the plan, DEEP has to review it and make sure it's okay. But then it also guides DEEP. So I think part of that is what Harry was saying, where the slips are, where are you putting some over shellfish beds? And I mean, that's sounds like some stuff they get involved in.
And do those become planning issues for us? Or is it going to, what would our environment be in the future, potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose POCD stuff, because we can cover whatever we want in the plan of conservation development,
right.
but not so much zoning, not the regulatory stuff. I think our jurisdiction ends at the mean high tide water mark, and we hear coastal stuff, and we're supposed to look at the impacts, but we don't regulate stuff that's beyond that. I mean, physical structures, I don't think we do. Yeah.
But this is requesting that property owners who abut the new scenarios, say a dock over or a estuary, a flat or something, have to be informed. And then doesn't that trigger us as the vehicle for adjudicating, if that's the right word, adjudicating the
Are
public input around
you-
it?
When you say this, do you mean the Harbor Management Commission or the proposed dock regulations?
I guess both, you know, if there's some proposal to a dock or a shoreline asset that's beyond the mean high water mark and a neighbor is involved because as an abutter to that,
Right.
then doesn't that sort of ex post factor pull us into the conversation with the harbor management group, or is it still going to be?
I don't think it.
Separate?
We only go as far as the mean high water mark. Then you got to get your DEP approval. They decide a public hearing. The neighbors show up at that and complain or say, you know, and they look at the ecological impacts. That's my understanding. I mean, that's what John Luss did. He represented people putting docks in, and
Right.
and sometimes DEP had hearings. I think again the stuff landward of that mark we would have jurisdiction, but a lot of the main stuff is the stuff actually in the water and where you're putting that, and I don't think we do.
Yeah, and I think it also creates the potential for some funding. So, for example, if there's a proposal for a dock going into the water, there could be a sort of a registration process of some kind, some fee, or an enforcement process to be done by the harbor master that may not be able to be done until you've got a harbor management plan and a harbor management commission. There's some powers that come along with that, I think. But again, you know,
And
I'm a
right
little
now
bit
we have
anxious.
both a harbor manager and a commission. We have a commission for him to.
We
Well,
don't.
that's the question. We have a harbor master, but we do not have a commission. So proposal is to adopt an ordinance to allow that to be created and then
Create a commission, okay.
plan and go forward. Yeah. So more to come.
Interesting, thank you.
Yeah, sure. That's all I've got. No, some of you may be aware that I have submitted my letter of retirement, resignation, which would be effective on the middle of next month, November 15th, Friday after the next, actually the Friday before the second meeting of the month. So I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. I thank you, some of those folks who the commission have already sent me some emails. I appreciate the thoughts and comments. I will certainly miss everyone greatly. I've been doing this for 38 years in a lot of different communities and a few different states, and it's been a giant part of my life. And I'm just sort of realizing how big that is as I get closer to doing this. But I am a personal situation sort of kicking me over the edge a little bit, and there's other new opportunities I'm going to be looking at pursuing. So as a package, it's just time to do it. So.
Well, one of the things I mentioned is I'm proposing that we have a dinner, a night out with Harry at some point. So we'll be circulating some dates to see when people are available. It'll be us, not a town thing, just our commission, and maybe some alumni. Maybe find John Luss, Paul Higgins, other folks, and see if we can get together and honor, raise a toast to Harry and his new prospects.
Thank you very much.
Are we gonna roast him too?
Oh, you betcha.
Oh, yeah. That goes
I'm digging out that staff report where he said the wrong thing. Gonna wave it around.
Honestly, that happens almost every day here anyway. So anything new.
Take a number and get in line.
Pretty much.
different level.
I'm sure you're
Fred Russo, I just want to say that I think you made all of our jobs easier in the input that you've had, and with the commission. I know I'm speaking for myself. I've learned an unbelievable amount of things just from your conversations and work that you've done. So I want to say to you this moment personally, thank you very much for all that you've done for our commission, but for the town of Brantford as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fred.
Yeah.
How many years in Brantford has it been? I mean, it seems like.
It came in, and the very first thing I did was help pull together the decision on the Costco master plan. So it'll be 10 years next June.
Wow.
Next June if I stay.
Came in right with the fire.
It jumped the fire right on my lap. Yes. But you guys have basically already, you know, the parameters were already set, so it was just technically putting it together.
Oh, thank you very much for all your service. It's been.
Yeah, I mean, Harry's kind of made it easy because you've got, there's a lot of detail, there's a lot of meticulousness, there's a lot of things you pick up, and frankly, you know, he's a tough guy, and if necessary, we can be a little bit easier, you know, because I'd rather be we'll let you rather have him be the tough guy, and we can lighten up a bit, and because you see it all, and you go through it, and you raise different things, and I mean, it's just great, the thorough review of it, you know, the pages and pages of conditions, which God forbid I would ever. Ugh. I mean, that's just work.
Well, I don't think people realize all the work that goes in behind the scenes before we see it to get applications ready and suitable. And
and it's certainly not just me, particularly in the last year or two. I mean, Evan has picked up the lion's share of the development review workload, and it's another thing that's not really seen is how much collaboration there is and supporting each other here, and it'd be impossible for me to do my job without the people that work here, and they're a great group that basically leaving you in the hands of. So I'm very confident that the whole situation will evolve and resolve itself and establish a new equilibrium, and everything will go on.
So no negotiations to stay on on a consultant basis during the transition?
Yeah, I'm happy to try and do whatever I can do to make the transition as smooth as possible. I'm talking about that with folks here, so we'll just see what happens.
Harry, Fred Russo. This conversation just makes me recall that when I was a young kid growing up, in the end, and Chuck said about, someone got to be the tough guy. The toughest teachers are the ones you always remembered. The ones that you got away with murder with, you never talk them with that level of respect that they probably should deserve. So I say that if anybody's accused you of being tough, I would take it as a compliment.
I do. I mean, I've heard other adjectives used to describe that. So I'll just leave that there.
Well, are we leaving you with the whip because you whipped everybody into shape? Is that the sentiment?
I don't really think that's the case. It's kind of analogous to trying to force a speed limit on a highway. You pick your battles, you find certain people, and and most people I think are trying to do a good job and get down the highway safely. But there are always a few players who are trying to do things a little differently. But you guys have been a great commission, one of the best I've ever worked with, and I really admire the attitude of trying to do the best for the town, and that is what I see in everyone's. You may have different ideas of how to do that, but everyone seems to have that job one in their minds. Well, every commissioner of this group that I've worked with, past and present. So you guys make it. It's not easy, but you certainly make it worthwhile to do it.
Well, Harry.
All right.
This means the next meeting we're piling on to the next meeting. It's technically your last meeting, the next one, right?
Wow.
Technically, it is last meeting. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah.
So is it going to be a late meeting? The next meeting?
Oh, we got the next meeting. Look at that. We'll be here to midnight.
We got a pretty full agenda. We'll see how it goes.
Well, it's going to be a special evening, seeing that Michelle is on screen too. This is the first time I've seen her since we've done the Zoom.
She's the unsung hero over there.
She is definitely an unsung hero.
Yes.
And not the only one, but
great. Well, anything else, Harry?
Nope. Evan, I don't know if you have anything else.
I think I want to thank you for, I can't even quantify how much I've learned over the past 3 years. I came in with like a little over a year or two of experience, and I think the difference just for me alone from working under you is tremendous. And I think I speak for Michelle when I say you're just a great person to work under, and understanding, and a very good boss.
Okay, I'm almost blushing, so I'm getting a little old for that. So, but thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And I think the town does not understand how much money they've saved by hand delivering so many packets over the years.
Well, we haven't recently tried to quantify that, so we're looking at other options too. So, I'm a paper guy from a paper world, and it's really time to move into the 21st century a little more fully. So maybe that's something that'll be explored, a little more detail by the next town planner. So,
Anyone else have anything? If not, then I guess do a motion to adjourn.
Fred Russo will make that motion to adjourn.
Fred moves to adjourn. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second, Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All in favor, Joe Chadwick?
Chadwick is in favor. Bonne notte.
Fred
Moves to resign. Whatever you're doing here. Close the
You're in
meeting.
favor of the motion to adjourn. Right. Okay. Marcy, are you in favor of the motion to
Yes,
adjourn?
I'm in favor.
Joe Vayuza.
Nobody is in favor.
And so's the chair. So I guess we're adjourned, guys.
All right.
Night.
Okay.
Have the next
Great
meeting.
meeting, everyone.
Good night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Brantford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BrantfordTV.org.